If we're talking about word games, yes, you already mentioned that the ROAS is 15 to 17% on day zero, but what's the best way to optimize these kinds of games? I guess you shouldn't optimize them for day zero, right? If you want to improve your skills and get published, simply go to the CAS.AI website and fill out the publishing form. If you just want to monetize your game, please go to the CAS.AI website and simply fill out the mediation form.
That's absolutely correct. Day zero is essentially a kind of starting point. It's actually significant too, but as I showed today, we have a very high retention rate. It's generally best to optimize for day 7. And now, some networks allow you to optimize for the 28th day. Even in Google Ads, there is an option to run ad campaigns, I think, for the 30th day, if I'm not mistaken, but it could also be for the 28th day or something like that. We'll record a separate video for you on how this is calculated in Google. Yes, but you also need to check whether this retention is consistent from network to network. When you launch advertising campaigns, be sure to pay attention to whether your retention rate is dropping and whether the network has slipped you a bot. Because we've encountered this even in our own media buying. When you have a great retention rate on the first, second, and third days, sometimes even the fourth, and then it suddenly drops off along with the bot traffic you bought, and you can't make sense of it. That's why before launching such campaigns, you first need to make sure it's not a bot.
So I need to calculate my return on investment, advertising costs, and user acquisition costs on the 30th day.
On the contrary, look, as I mentioned today, if we're talking about our standard approach, what we usually do, we calculate what percentage of ROS we want to get back by the 120th day. Everything I showed you today, dear viewers, we looked at using AppMagic. This is one of our valuable partners who helps us analyze games in terms of acquisition, and an SDK that has a lot of different interesting features. For you, it won't be the 120th day, but probably, if not the 240th, then definitely something around the 180th. You need to understand, by the 180th day, roughly, what ROS margin you want to achieve so that your user pays off and brings in extra profit. I'm afraid our viewers might not have fully understood this.
We're saying that the break-even point for a project like this, in the best case, is 4 months, but that's a really, really ideal scenario. In that case, you won't be able to buy much. But if you want to buy a lot, it's 6 months, 8 months, or even a year in advance.
In general, with any iOS projects, if they don't have any organic traffic at all, and there is absolutely no history of purchases whatsoever, you can simply go straight to Apple Search or Google, where we have SCAD attribution available for tracking. But that's basically setting yourself up for failure. How does a SCAD network work? Google and Facebook on iOS. You only see those users who have given permission to track their data, for example. For the rest, whether it's the first or the second ad network, it's essentially all about modeling. So let's say we take 100% of people. Now, only about 20% of users actually gave their permission, and then it's up to your imagination. However many users you want, you just fill in the numbers. If you don't want to, you don't fill them in. In fact, it took us quite a long time to get to this point ourselves, and it was only this year that we learned how to correctly and accurately calculate and record the number of users and installs on SCAD network. We have a special formula for this, and through our experience, we've learned how to properly launch ad campaigns on both iOS and Google platforms.
If you want to monetize your game right away, quickly with 15 ad networks, go to the CAS.AI website and fill out the form, and we'll help you with this very quickly.
Next, of course, are the creatives. As practice shows, if you have a cool, juicy, interesting creative that attracts users, even if there's not even any gameplay from the actual game in it, that also affects your CPI. And of course, as Vika mentioned, it's the conversion rate of your page. The higher it is, the lower your CPI will be.
If you've launched a project and there's no organic traffic, it's not worth going to Google Ads on iOS. So where should you go?
To video networks, which I just showed, the ones we bought traffic from, where you can get installs not for $3.50 or $8 and up, but for 30 cents.
If you have a great project with a good retention rate, solid monetization, and so on, then incentivized traffic is the perfect way to get started with a relatively small budget. Well, not 50,000, but around 5 to 10,000. You can get started and you'll start getting organic traffic. Do you agree or disagree? Let me ask you this. Is organic traffic the highest converting when it comes to subscriptions, in-app purchases, and so on?
I really don't agree. In practice, that's not the case.
Show me some actual data, because in every project I've worked with, there hasn't been a single case where the subscription conversion rate was higher from paid traffic, regardless of whether it's Google Ads, Facebook, search ads, or anything else, than from users who come through organic channels.
There are games requiring in-app purchases. There is no point in them leaking the company's CPI. In companies like these, the percentage of paying users is typically 7%. This is 8 to 10%. This one is close and not 50%. That means you still buy 90% of users.
Sorry, I have two projects. One of them is organic and has an 18% subscription rate. 18. The second project actually has 12. I've honestly never heard of such conversion rates on purchasing traffic.
Let me show you. Here's our game in progress right now. And look, as you can see, we're buying from Google and have an in-app ratio. And here is organic matter. That is the ratio of organic traffic, this advertising revenue, yes, and purchases is what we are talking about here. And here are the purchases and ad revenue.
Look, I saw you, but we're not saying that you're actually getting organic traffic as true organic. You're simply not getting it from search engines. Your app is just hanging there and it's showing up in collections of similar apps, so the organic traffic is coming from there, not through keywords, I'm sure of it. What keywords is your app ranking for at the top?
We're at the top by geo in this project. Countries including Turkey, Russia, Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan, Algeria, and notably Brazil. Strangely enough, we actually have China doing pretty well. China is even bigger than the States. Just for a second, let me point that out. And only after all the ones I listed above come the States.
Look, in the top one, where you actually get traffic from, that's your brand, your app. If we're talking about general queries, you're not at the top anywhere. To get significant organic website traffic. So the organic traffic that you're currently getting right now, if you go into the Google Play console and take a closer look, I'm 100% sure that it's coming from collections, from similar apps, or from specific branded keywords. But you don't have any specifically targeted queries where someone comes in and searches, say, racing or, I don't know, battle racing or fighting or something else. I'm talking specifically about organic traffic from keywords. It's highly conversion focused. If we're talking about organic traffic in general, where you're just suggested as a similar app, that's a different story. That's another type of organic traffic, and we don't focus on it. ASO is mainly for search traffic, only for search traffic.
Look at Turkey, please. It's showing us Turkey here.
If we're talking about gaming apps, it's always about paid acquisition. I mentioned this in all my videos. It's the same here. In Turkey, only your brands are at the top spot. Everything else gets very, very, very little traffic. The point is that here you might actually be getting some... Mostly it's your organic traffic. What's the point? For gaming apps, especially casual or hyper-casual, it's always about paid acquisition. Very little organic traffic, and if any, it's all branded. For example, look, with your world battle, there are a lot of search queries, so it makes sense to get in there. But if we're talking about match 3 games, I would never recommend anyone to promote a match 3 in search. The reason is that it's a popular niche. You'll never break into the top, and if you do, it'll cost you, well, literally tens of thousands of dollars. And everything there is already divided up. That is, there are some very well-known apps that have been dominating the market for years, even decades, and you won't even be able to move them, no matter what you do. And if we're talking about certain games like for adults, like those truth or dare games, there are just a few, really just a handful of gaming apps that have their own search queries. But if we're talking about something like this, specifically in the case of World Battle, it really does make sense to be there. You can see this because these aren't branded keywords. And here we can actually choose something. If we're talking specifically about these kinds of racing games, then Zoriana, here you're the only one in control. That's true. So we only need user acquisition.
Thank Victoria. Thank you very much, Zoriana. Thank you, Ahmad. Thank you, viewers. Bye-bye. Subscribe to the CAS.AI channel and hit the bell so you don't miss out on monetization strategies and case studies from the mobile gaming world.